Hello and welcome to Invisible, Breaking Through the Stigma of Addiction. I'm your host, Dean Anderson. This is a show about addiction, substance use, and stigma, how it impacts our community and the people in it. On today's show, the first time ever, we've got two guests. So I'm going to try to introduce them to the best of my ability because we have some really amazing people here and I want to get it perfectly right. Today I've got Sergeant Amy Birtch from the London City Police and I've got Jaclyn Seeler. Seeler. Oh, I was trying to get it right. Program coordinator from SWAR, which is the Street Level Women at Risk, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited to be here.
So part of the reason why we have two guests on today's show is because of this dynamic between London City Police and the mental health services in the community. And I'm just gonna dump it right back onto you to just share. Tell me all about it. Tell me what it is that the two of you do.
Well, where to start with that one? I think, this didn't start the way it is now. I mean, it was started very kind of bare bones in development. And it started back with London Police in 2005 initiating, it was in essence a pilot project to start, where a sergeant was going out into community and trying to develop and build relationships to women that were in homelessness and engaged in survival sex. Historically, that's a very challenging demographic to build a degree of trust to, and there's a huge degree of mistrust of police. That was it was coming on the time of when the Picton homicides were going on, or had occurred, and the number of women that had gone missing in Vancouver's Lower East Side. Is this something that we could have done more as police to stop this before it got to the magnitude that did? So this was where it basically stemmed from that, is that there was an interest in trying to engage with a highly vulnerable, and I mean, in my opinion, they're pretty much the most vulnerable demographic within the city, women that are engaging in survival sex and in the street, like in essence standing out on the corner doing their sex work at night and just hoping that they're being picked up by somebody who's not going to hurt them and drop them off again. So in that time, and again, this is going back, 18 years now, it's crazy, right? Wow. Yeah, where this program started, Sergeant Lorna Bruce, was very successful in engaging and developing relationships with the women. At the time, she would identify, it was kind of in the numbers between 150 to 200 women that were engaging in this type of work in a city that actually required services. And even at the time, there wasn't a lot of services that were being available in the city. So the police kind of became that boots on the ground, literally going out there and trying to engage with this demographic. As time went by, more services came on, developed a relationship with Intercommunity Health where actually a physician went out with the sergeant and then would actually engage the population and try to do very minor, medical, if it was like draining abscesses or anything like that, in the moment. In essence, of try to get them to come into the clinic to receive assistance, like medical. Sure. And then I think Jackie's probably almost better to talk about this one with when it came to community consultations and how things could be done differently. And this kind of developed what we have now with Street Level Women at Risk.
Yeah, so it was about 2014, there was 3 community consultations that happened between, at the time, it was 22 agencies that we refer to as our community advisory group. We're now at 27, so it's really exciting now that we're 7 years into operations that collaborative advisory group still exists. But through the community consultations with the 22 agencies at the time, which was cross-sector, it was really exciting to have so many folks to the table to say, we know that we're serving this population, but we're not doing it well. And we know that these women deserve better outcomes than what we're providing as a community. And then that work was going back and forth between what we call the Women's Advisory Group, which again, they still continue to consult us today. And so the 33 women with lived and living expertise that were connected to Sergeant Lorna Bruce really helped to create the plan. It was really about saying to them, what would have helped you when you were in this situation, and how do we build that around your experiences and what you need, and what would have helped you to achieve the hopes and dreams that you have for yourself. And the community came together to build Street Level Women at Risk. And yeah, we're 7 years into operations now. I
love it. I love the idea of recognizing that the the lived experience is at the hub of it all. We
That's right.
recognize in the past where we would have some suits or some people from up above would come down and say, I think what's a good idea here is this, and that's not what you're doing here.
No, we don't do anything without them. And even now within our work, we still continue to meet with them monthly. And those are our favorite meetings. We bring questions forward from the team, but anything that we're struggling to really, go back for with a solution, they fix. They give us the advice and we take it and run with it. And really, I would say anything that we do in practice is not done without their agreement and their approval in our practice of our work.
Wow, so that's a really large committee, and that sounds like a lot of moving parts when you're talking about all the different things that are happening here. One of the things that stood out to me right off the bat is I know that there's a struggle, and I'm going to bring it back to you, Amy. There's a struggle with police being thought of as the call all. Something's wrong, there's a mental health crisis, there's something going on. And here we are now working, coexisting with, like similar to Coast and that sort of thing, working together. What are the barriers with the boundaries there? Because I can see that people are like, don't call the police when there's a problem with a mental health issue, but here we are like completely integrating with that type of thing.
I think actually it worked. It's working fantastic because the police, and when I say the police, I really do mean me when I was associated to the team, where you had trust with a lot of these women because you are actually bringing these women to street level women at risk. Like 100% there's like addiction issues, there's mental health issues that are at play. And then you're basically bringing them into street level, and they're going to be provided with wraparound services. They're going to start looking for a place to live, a home for them, and they're going to be provided with additional resources that they wouldn't have had. So in turn, that really, the idea of it, and we certainly saw it anecdotally, is that our calls for service to police would certainly drop because they had an agency, a person that they were super comfortable with reaching out to. So even from taking that one step further, having that support worker, and then that support worker knows that I am there at a phone call to engage. If we need to have police involvement, I can be there. And that could be police involvement it could be mental health from an apprehension. It could be even to deal with something that a woman might want to report. And that can be, we dealt with a lot of sexual kind of based trauma and reporting of sexual offenses to police. So, it was building that relationship too, was allowed women to feel comfortable in coming forth with a lot more information.
And what's the pinnacle of that? How do you, like, relationships being the key thing? In my work, rapport means everything. If I don't have rapport, forget about it. What's behind that? You're not walking up and just saying, "Hi, I want to build rapport with you. Will you be my friend?" Like, that doesn't happen. What's the key?
It was super challenging when I first came into the role. I came into the role very late in 2016, and my name wasn't out there. It wasn't in the community. Women didn't know who I was, and I was really utilized my predecessor of Lorna Bruce's name out there to try to get 100%, because I was hopeful that the trust that they would have given to her could be extended to me because they had trust there that was building. So that was challenging. Yes, I'm a police officer, and I'm literally rolling up to where they're located, and they're working, they're doing what they need to do to survive. And I'm like, hey, my name's Amy Birtch, I'm with London Police, and that took some while to develop, just like it took some to develop his degree of trust to Street Level Women at Risk program as well. So that extension of trust is an amazing thing. That's for sure. But once I'd been out there and my name became more known, it was super humbling to me. It was so interesting that as soon as I'd say my name, they knew they'd heard about me. And I was like, wow, that was one of the biggest indicators of that actually was having an impact and a degree of success with that, because I would very rarely, I think I can only think of a couple times where women didn't want to talk to me, and whether that was me or it was extenuating circumstances, I don't know, but it's amazing what trust and relationship building can do.
Without a doubt. So I'll let you both know that in my experience of working with the homeless population and working withdrawal management, both of your names have come forward to me, and I've heard those. So your names do echo throughout the community in the City of London. So thank you very much, both of you, for that, right? I heard you say that when I roll up on them. I'm assuming you're not coming up in a big tank with a SWAT and a rolling up on, right?
So I'm literally
describe give me a better description of rolling up on somebody.
And when I say that, I mean, yeah, I'm probably being I'm not trying to be callous, but I can see
no. That's just terminology. It's slang.
100%.
It's slang, but I wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
How you're approaching,
Absolutely.
and I'm assuming you're not in full.
No, I'm literally dressed exactly how I am today.
Okay.
And I'm operating a plainclothes vehicle. Like there's no marker of being London Police on it. It's literally a minivan. And even to take that further, once the women knew it was me, I'd have women waving to me. So it's like, but yeah, so when I say rolling up, it was definitely completely like you're not screaming, I'm the police. So, because that's not going to work either, right?
Yeah.
No.
And there's a high level of respect for what the women are doing, right, out in their work and making sure that we're not interrupting their work, and that it really is about, so now the sergeant would go out with a team lead in the program. It used to be Amy and I that would go out together and talk to the women, and we knew that it was going to take time. So sometimes it was like immediate trust, and that was incredible, but sometimes it took years to build that trust, and sometimes it was going to visit women in the hospital just to say, hey, like, we have housing with wraparound support if you're ever interested, or going to meet with them while they were working and just saying, hey, here's some items if you need it, or, here's some snacks or water or whatever it is, just to slowly build that relationship. And we knew that it was going to take time, and every person is different. And some people are like, I don't want that help, and that's absolutely okay. It's simply here if they were wanting to engage with us in that support. And we felt really grateful for the extension of trust that they would give to us around, being able to just have conversations. And we tried to keep it, pretty minimal in conversation, trying to be as trauma-informed as possible, not,
you don't want to be overwhelming.
Too many
right?
paperwork up front. And
Are you sure you don't hang out? Do you want to?
Yeah.
For sure.
Just,
I can think of even times with building a relationship or trying to build trust to a woman is like the first couple stages might even be just them actually literally walking over to my open window and me handing them a cigarette like that. Sure. Like, and there'd be times I would do that with, like I said, I can think of one time where I was doing that for a long time, like a period of a year and a half before she would actually be willing to talk to me. But it came to the point where she would talk to me.
Yeah.
So it's those little things. And I don't have any expectations. She would just come over and grab a cigarette from me and walk away. She knew who I was. Yeah. But yeah, like there's so many times when it takes a long time to build that trust.
Yeah.
stigma is by that person-centered approach, that, you know, the person comes first, right? Person-first approach. So we're going to take a quick break, and it's gone by super fast. There's so much more I want to talk to you about, but we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Invisible, Breaking Through the Stigma of Addiction, where we have two fantastic guests on the show today, Amy and Jaclyn. Thank you again for being here from Street Level Women at Risk and London Police. I want to jump into a terminology that came up, a wording that you used in the beginning, and it was engaging in survival sex. And what that means, like when I hear it, I know I've heard it in the circles of social workers and stuff, but it's not a common terminology that's out there. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. Can you elaborate on that terminology and what it means?
Do you want to take that question?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, we see sex work on a continuum. And so on one place of the continuum would be women who engage in survival sex work. So that means that they would ultimately lack maybe choice in some of the sex work that they're choosing to do. That may mean that they're exchanging sex for food, for a place to stay, sometimes staying in John's homes, you know, to have a place overnight, or sometimes exchanging sex for substances. So that's what we would categorize as survival sex work. And our work here is ultimately, again, as we've said, to journey alongside women in hopes that they can help build autonomy in their lives. And so some may move along that continuum in sex work and then continue in sex work from a place of choice, however that looks from them, and some choose to exit. So it's really about their journey.
Super controversial topic, and you hear all the different, you know, and right from beliefs and values and right down to social work sides of things. But there's also a criminal element. I'll go back to you, Amy. There's also there's lots of variables there. I'd love for you to just shine some light on what that looks like from a perspective of somebody engaging in this when there's, you know, laws that are involved in that sort of stuff.
So, I mean, and part of that spectrum is human trafficking, and trafficking at, I'd say, at the wide end of one is, I mean, it's exploited by nature. There's no control. The women that define themselves in that might not even know what city they might be working. Their ads are being posted by somebody who's controlling them. It is a complete position of control. And to women who write down, and I mean, obviously there's laws within our country that would support that, and women can come forth to our team within London Police, our human trafficking team, to report. And that, again, lies on women's choice as to where they would like that to go. Some women want to come forth and just feel that they know a police officer, feel comfortable with a police officer. If they decide to come forth, some might actually provide statements to police and not want to go any further than that. Like, it really is led by the women that are wanting to report and what they want from the police. And then, I mean, from that, it goes down to women that are engaging more in escorting, where, like Jackie said, there's a lot more control. They might be posting their own ads. They might have a separate apartment that they're working in that's separate from their home. And I mean, I used to get a number of phone calls from them when they required kind of some police intervention. If they're having issues with a John or whatever, they might want to report to me, and then I would deal with it from that angle. To the women that we were really there to support, the women that are engaging in survivalist sex work. And that is, in essence, really just to go out there in the community, do their work. Hopefully they're meeting Johns that are treating them half decent, and they're getting money in return, and then be able to maybe eat, feed their addiction, do whatever they need to do. So, I mean, yeah, like, and there is legality centered around women that are engaging in survival sex work, but it's not on the women, it's on the Johns.
Okay. Oh, so can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So the offense actually occurs with the men. I'm using the term men because that's typically what we see as men going out to purchase sex. Okay. That's where the law suit fits. Okay. Women can engage in sex work. They can post their own ads. They can go out in the community and do that. There's nothing against the law about that. Okay. It's the purchasing of it that is against the law. Yeah,
I think we're so conditioned by media, and we see this, you know, this media where there's women working on the street and the police pull up and they all scatter and they run away, and that's not really the case anymore. Right.
And there could be a lot of reasons for that too, right?
There could be other reasons to run away. There's certainly different variables there. Yeah. What about when it comes during the break? There was some mention of what it looked like when these women who are engaging in survival sex work or are just homelessness are ending up in the court system, or ending up where they have charges for other things. What does that look like in regards to so I get frustrated with it because I recognize that this survival work and substance use and addiction, the system making it illegal in a lot of ways is inappropriate, and then we end up overburdening the system with these things. So what is it that you two do in regards to, or SOLAR or London Police, to mitigate that or minimize those things?
It was certainly definitely bringing the women into the program. I'd say by far the vast majority have had involvement or continued involvement within the judicial system. That could be through probationary terms where they're still seeing a probation officer, and it could be where they're still incurring criminal offenses. A lot of those criminal offenses were centered around more theft. Theft of product, theft of foods, things like that.
It was linked to poverty, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Criminalization of poverty.
Sure, the criminalization of poverty. Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, there would be definitely supports that we would do there, and some of the supports would just even be going into EMDC to meet the women where they're at in that moment, and even have those conversations at that point, whether they're ready. And then we would extend that and have actually conversations with local crowns and see what we can actually navigate criminal charges and what we can do to support. I know that street level was writing letters very quickly, even
letters of support.
Letters of support, yeah.
So that we could help women that were maybe involved in the justice system to say we're supporting them with. We forgot to mention at the beginning, we're a 27 agency housing first collaborative, so it's about finding housing with in-home support, and so it's about going back and saying they've located housing, they've located affordable, safe housing, they've got wraparound support, and we know that if they're going back in to serve time, that may actually destabilize somebody. And so if that participant is saying to us, like, that's not the path they want to take, then how can we provide the support? If the community's already wrapping around this individual and they're getting that support, we want to remove that institutional circuit as best as we can.
Yeah, and I don't think to just add on to that, as I recognize the value in that and the criminalized poverty. And what I think the audience might not understand is that people end up in the system and then they end up perpetually in the system, because then when they get out with criminal charges, they have a background, they then struggle with all those barriers we're trying to eliminate become barriers by being incarcerated.
I can automatically think of one woman that we are supporting. I think she just recently had come out of a probationary term, and I think she'd been in probation, 13? I think it might even be
Well,
longer
since she
than
was
that.
13,
Or
and
was
it was the
since she was
first
13.
time she was off probation, and she was 32.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's just a life of not knowing any different.
Well, once you get in the system, it's hard to get out of the system too, right? You know, criminal charges keep coming, and then it kept her in that. And it certainly was super exciting for her when she was coming out of that. She hadn't had an adult life yet without being on probation.
Yeah, and that changes a person internally. I mean, that changes who you are when because shame is a huge part of it. Stigma and shame, in the title of the television show, stigma and shame are a huge part of that. That stigma of knowing that you have this parole or probation creates a lot of barriers when it comes to trying to grow and evolve as a human being, regardless of who you are. I know, as far as I'm concerned, you have it going on. You're not going to try and leaps and bounds take over the world. You're kind of hiding behind that. So I would love to segue into the stigma and shame of it. Like, there's so much of it. What are the things that you recognize are the real big problems when it comes to the way the community sees and or interacts with the street level women at risk and the stigma? What is it?
I think the women experience a high degree of stigma just by the merit of even the work that they've done, or even engaging in sex work. There's definitely a strong stigma that occurs with that, even to the point where I've heard different people make a mention that, the police don't care about them. They're not going to notice that they're gone or they're missing. And that certainly is not accurate at all within the City of London. We do notice, and we do whatever we need to do. So I think there is an angle where our society does devalue them. There's no doubt about that.
Sure.
Right. And then they think with their devaluing, that they automatically assume that we don't value them as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even from dealing with the women, we have to ensure that they are valued and speak, and not just even speaking to them like they're human beings, and trying to build their confidence and trust to you as well.
Yeah. So what do we do? I'm going to pull out the magic wand and say, if we can fix this, how do we, what are the things that you think that we need to do as a community to change that voice, to change that lens, to recognize? I wish I could do it, but I mean, I see that there's an opportunity for compassion and people to see the community as they're people, right? So
well,
how do we engage that?
I think that we're already starting to see a changing narrative around this, and I would certainly say even with our city, right, we're really lucky in London that we can have conversations, for example, say around gendered homelessness. We can see where there's a change in priority around understanding a woman's experience of that and what that looks like and how we need to have different pathways in and out of homelessness for women and different populations depending on what that experience is. And I think, even when we're talking about the continuum of sex work, we were so grateful that so many community partners came to the table so many years ago to have that really challenging conversation, but at the end of the day said it doesn't matter where we disagree on our fundamental differences. What we do agree on is that we need to support women differently, and what we do agree on is housing as a human right. And that's where we started our work from, and we learned so much from each other. No matter what our opinion was on that continuum of sex work, it was about supporting that woman and supporting her from what her lens was and what her hopes and dreams were for herself. And I think that we've seen a shift in conversation in our community since that, and through the collaborations that we've developed from Street Level Women at Risk, we have not done this work in isolation. It has been truly a collective effort from our community, from the 27 agencies, through the leading of London Police and our backbone support with City of London. We've been so lucky to have so many people on board to help us support these women in a different way, and I can only see that continue to grow.
Awesome. So I'm bringing out my magic wand again. If you could have something else, brought into the community, or something that you think could change in a grander scheme of things, what would it be?
Wow, that's a hard question to answer.
It is a hard question
It's a
to
super
answer.
hard question to
So
answer.
let me rephrase it then. Let me rephrase it. What's the most difficult barrier that you find yourself facing every day that you wish wasn't in your way?
Oh man, probably speaking to community-based funding. Like there's just not enough funding there and supports. But even being said, I think London's done a phenomenal job with the work that we're doing now. The fact that we have the 27 agency collaborative that is including police in it, it's amazing, right? So I mean, it's hard to have an ask for more when Street Level Women at Risk is 7 years in, and we can see huge changes in the benefits of the life of women. So I mean,
more funding though would be great.
More funding would always be great and support.
And even with the work that we're doing, there's still systemic barriers. So even with a 27 agency collaborative, we still experience them like everyone else. And so I think we're really excited to see the work that's happening with the Health and Homelessness Summit right now, that there's been a cross-sector momentum to look at how we're changing the system in a different way, because there's great work happening every day, not within just Street Level Women at Risk, but all over our community that we don't hear enough about. But it's about taking that good work and saying, what can we also do differently that isn't working, and where are the systemic gaps, and how do we work together collectively to change those systemic gaps, and put all the funding on the table and say, let's work together. And I think that's what we're seeing through the Health and Homelessness Summit.
And Jaclyn just brought us home right into the end of the show perfectly. I couldn't have done it any better myself. Thank you both, Amy and Jaclyn, for being on the show. And thank you for watching Invisible: Breaking Through the Stigma of Addiction. We'll see you next time.